Hello there, everyone. How lovely to be with you all again. Well, here I am in Brussels at the EU headquarters, the beating heart of the Union, as it were. I've just been hanging around, really, waiting to get tipped, as we call it in the trade, you know. It's really quite remarkable, the length of time it's required to unload 27 tons of toilet paper. Quite extraordinary. To pass the time, I've been chatting with some of the staff here, and the topic on everyone's lips is the last speech by Nigel Farage. I'm afraid I didn't hear it myself, but I'm told it was up to his usual standard. They say the chamber was in uproar within minutes, and by the time he'd finished, Nigel heard them rolling in the aisles, apparently. He cracked a rather amusing gag, something about delegates never having had a proper job, which left them with tears running down their cheeks. This is why I love Nigel so much. He just has that natural ability to unite people through humour, you see. I mean, how could anyone fail to see the funny side of a remark like that? Even though he was plainly joking, one couldn't accuse Nigel of never having had a proper job. I believe he was something in the city. Now there's a real man's career for you. It's in his genes, you know. They say his father was a bit of a merchant banker. I must say I was rather surprised when Nigel resigned as leader of UKIP the other day. Some say, with absolutely no justification in my opinion, that this was all because the Leave campaign had voted him out of the exit talks. If that's true, then I rather think they've cut off their noses to spite their faces. After all, Nigel spent more than a decade at the EU Parliament, gently pointing out the many faults of that organisation and the people who run it. Who better to negotiate a splendid new deal with our European neighbours? I'm sure the other delegates welcomed Nigel's forthright honesty. And he's married to a German, for heaven's sake. Surely that would have earned us brownie points with Mrs. Merkel. But Nigel's not the only one to go of late, is he? First there was David Cameron, then Boris Johnson, and now Jeremy Corbyn has the Wolves gathering. Or should that be the Eagles? You know, I rather fear there'll be no one left at this rate. That announcement by Boris was a bit of a shocker, wasn't it? It took everyone by surprise, even Boris, I suspect. Of course, the conspiracy theory chaps are having a field day. They're already saying Boris was secretly in favour of the EU all along, and that he only supported the Leave campaign because he actually thought Remain would pull off a narrow victory. The idea, allegedly, was that this would make Boris look like a man of principle and still leave him front-runner as the next PM of a pro-Europe Tory government. Well, I must say I find that rather too Machiavellian for my taste. I mean, the very idea that any British politician could be as devious and underhanded as that, it's really quite preposterous. Personally, I'm rather sad that Boris is out of the running. Just think how amusing Prime Minister's Question Time could have been, eh? So, who does that leave in the race then? They say only 3 people have any real chance, with the favourite being Theresa May, the Justice Secretary. The lovely Theresa has promised to talk tough with the EU, even though she herself was strongly in favour of staying in the Union. Still, she did ever such a good job of ridding the country of one, or maybe even 2, notorious European criminals, so perhaps there's hope for her yet. The gorgeous Andrea Leadsom, on the other hand, there's Theresa's rival for the top job, eh? She's always been a staunch Brexit supporter. I remember during the referendum campaign how strongly she pooh-poohed the talk of a financial disaster if we left the EU, and Britain's credit rating was downgraded. Since the referendum, Britain's rating has slipped from AAA to AA, but I'm sure Andrea won't be worried, despite having written a blog post back in 2009 in which she said, if a credit downgrade happens, it's a huge blow for our economy and will potentially set us back several years on repaying our debts and returning our finances to health. I say, what a topsy world these politicians live in. I do wish they'd make up their minds and stick to it. It really would make things less confusing for the rest of us. Just about the only person sticking to his guns is the other leading contender, that charming fellow Michael Gove. I must say I found a whole new respect for him, the way he sacrificed 4 months of his life assessing Mr. Johnson's ability to be Prime Minister, and when Boris was found wanting, how Michael put friendship aside and stepped forward for the sake of the nation. That kind of selflessness is a rare thing nowadays. I was rather impressed when Michael made that speech. He jotted down at short notice all 5,000 words of it, especially the part where he says he never wanted to be Prime Minister and didn't think he was right for the job. Oh, and when he said that he didn't have any glamour or charisma, how lovely. The man obviously has great respect for the truth. I'm sure he'll go far. Well, at least we won't have to worry who to vote for, since we don't get a say in who becomes the next Prime Minister. I think it's awfully decent of them to do things in this way, don't you? Think of all those frail old people who would otherwise have to drag themselves out in the rain to some draughty polling station. Why, the poor dears could catch a nasty cold. You know, it all makes me rather glad we live in a democracy. And I hear there are moves afoot to extend the vote to 16-year-olds. What a splendid idea. I'm sure the majority of school-aged children can fully grasp the ramifications of global economics and international diplomacy. Some doubters would say that most young teens would vote for anyone as long as they promise to legalise party drugs, reduce the price of alcopops, and make it compulsory to provide free Wi-Fi. Well, everywhere, really. Oh, but that's a particularly cynical outlook in my view. Well, I see they've finished unloading, so I'd best be on my way. Time to put the pedal to the, the metallic thingy, as our American colleagues would say. Chin chin to everyone. Goodbye.